Hello there everyone, Matt here with thevirtualinstructor.com, and welcome to another episode of Getting Sketchy, where we try to create a drawing or a quick sketch from start to finish within a defined time frame. Now, of course, daily sketching practice is important to your drawing improvement, and that's what we're focused on here, creating a quick sketch in a defined amount of time from start to finish. Now, in today's episode, what we're going to do is we're going to create a drawing of this wonderful image of a bald eagle. We're going to concentrate on drawing the head only, and we're going to give ourselves 30 minutes for this exercise. Now, I'm going to be using graphite and white charcoal on toned paper, so let's go ahead and get into this episode. So here's a quick look at the materials that we're going to be working with. I'm going to be using a kneaded eraser, maybe, but I've got it out just in case. We'll use it if we need to. If we don't, of course, we won't use it. I'm going to be using a mechanical pencil initially. Now, this is made by Steedler, and inside of it, I have 2B graphite. So I'll be drawing very lightly at the beginning, but progressively I'll be getting darker with the applications. We're going to create the highlights here with a white charcoal pencil since we're working on toned gray paper. Now, this is just simple recycled gray drawing paper by Strathmore. It's great for sketching, and of course working on a toned surface allows us to push those values. So since we're starting with a middle value, a gray, we can add the light values, we can add the dark values, and basically we're starting from the middle of the value scale and working outward instead of working on a white sheet of paper where we have to basically push all the values darker. And I'll be using a 4B pencil maybe to go back in and make some of the values darker if we need to, but I'm going to try to use the 2B pencil for most of the applications, and of course the white charcoal pencil as well. One thing to note though before we get into this and before I start the timer: the white charcoal pencil does not cover over the top of graphite applications relatively easily. Sometimes it won't even cover at all. So we have to be careful with our graphite applications and basically preserve the areas of highlight that we're going to apply. And this might mean applying some of the highlights before we darken up some of the shadows. Just something to keep in mind. White charcoal pencils work well with a traditional charcoal, but graphite, for whatever reason, the material doesn't really work well with white charcoal when you're applying it over the top. So that's just something to keep in mind. All right, let's get all of these materials out of the way and we'll dive right into this. I've got the photo reference up there in the upper left-hand corner, which comes from a wonderful site called pixabay.com. So we're going to go ahead and start the timer. 30 minutes. Let's get started. So I'm going to start here by drawing loosely with the 2B graphite pencil. I'm going to draw very, very lightly. And what I'm going to be doing is basically looking at the overall shape that I see here on the head. And if you'll notice, there is a strong diagonal that happens. The head is kind of coming down at a diagonal, so we want to make sure we get that diagonal. And I'm just going to draw a very loose shape for the upper part of the head here. Now, drawing with shapes and drawing loosely with shapes allows us to kind of get the proportions correct. It allows us to make comparisons between the positive and negative shapes that we see, and it just kind of improves our drawing accuracy. You know, a lot of times people like to start with the contour lines or the outlines, and sometimes you can run into issues when you start with the contour lines, and one of those issues, of course, is running out of room on the paper. So I'm drawing this very lightly and loosely, and you can see I'm making changes here. The top of the head flattens out a little bit, and then the back of the head comes out at another diagonal here. And I'm drawing mostly with straighter lines here, and then we can round those straighter lines out as the drawing progresses. And here is the front edge of the head, and then of course the beak is going to come down. And again, kind of keeping more of an angular approach here with the initial sketch. And then it turns down. And again, just basic shapes here. And as we're drawing these basic shapes, of course, we're making comparisons to what we see in the reference. Now, the bottom of the neck, or just underneath the head, kind of comes down at an angle. And then we've got the front edge of the bird here. So, and then we can just take a quick check with our reference and kind of see if everything is the overall shape is kind of how we want it to be, and I think that looks like a pretty good place to start. And of course, it doesn't have to be super accurate. This is just a sketching exercise. Now we're going to go ahead and add the eye. Now, the location of the eye is important, of course. We don't want to put it too far to the left or too far to the right. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a comparison between where our the bottom of the neck. I don't know if it's a neck on a bird like this, but we're going to kind of make a comparison where this little part comes down. And if we go right above it, we can see that the eye is just to the left of that. So, and then at the top of the head, we also need to make a comparison between how far we need to come down on the head here. So I'm going to draw a very loose indication of where that eye is going to be located. And of course we can refine our circular shape there once we've got it in place. And at the beginning stages, you can see I'm drawing lots of lines. I'm trying to draw very loosely. It's almost like when you're molding a piece of clay. You start with a very loose indication of whatever you're building. It might just be a big old ball of nothing. And then the more that you work with the clay, the more it starts to turn into whatever you're trying to build here. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about this. Now we can start to refine things a little bit to a certain degree. Since we've got our basic shapes in place, and you can see I'm drawing the bottom portion of the bill or the beak. I'm not sure if eagles have bills. Then just right under here, there's a little bit of those feathers that kind of come out like this. And then the bottom of the bill kind of dips down and curves back up just slightly like this. And then the top edge, the top part of the bill, or the beak, I'm going to try not to call it a bill again, curves around. And then there's a little dip, and then back up. And then it kind of connects with the part that extends out, something like that. Now, another advantage to kind of starting with straight angular lines like we've done here with your initial sketch is it kind of helps to create a little bit more of a drawing that appears a little bit more organic. And sometimes I know that sounds strange, that it kind of sometimes leads to a drawing that's a little bit more organic when we're drawing strong edges, but a lot of times we can kind of exaggerate angles and things that happen, and that just kind of leads to a drawing that's a little bit more interesting. And perhaps you've seen that before. We can exaggerate whatever we want in a drawing. You don't have to follow things exactly. And of course we can make alterations as we continue to draw some of these contour lines now with a little bit more confidence, since we've got everything in the right place, or the place it's going to be. Doesn't have to be exact again. And then we'll just draw some of these edges of the feathers coming out with a little bit more of a defined line. And again, we don't have to draw all of the edges to be perfect or absolutely exact. We're using the photo reference as a reference, of course. We're not trying to copy it exactly. But we're trying to copy it as closely as possible, but we're not going to put too much pressure on ourselves to copy it exactly, of course. And then the front edge of the bird here. Okay, since we're working on a time drawing, we're going to kind of think about what we want to focus on, and it makes sense to kind of focus on the eye here and the front head of the front part of the head of the body, or the front part of the head, I should say. So now we're going to just refine the eye a little bit and start adding some of the details in there, like the pupil. And then there's a dark edge right around the outside part of the eye, so we can go ahead and put a little bit more pressure on the 2B pencil. And then it's a little bit lighter around the outside edge. It's actually yellow there, but of course yellow is a lighter color. It does get a little bit darker right here underneath this little recess. Yellow is naturally a lighter value. So we'll need to preserve some of those areas, and we can start to put a little bit of shading here. There's a lot of darker values that happen right on the right side of the eye and then kind of extend back into the back edge of the head here. So we've only been working here for 8 minutes on this drawing. It appears somewhere around there, somewhere around 8 minutes. And we've already got the structure of the head in place, and we're already adding value. So that's a good argument there for drawing with basic shapes there. If we were starting with the contour lines and trying to concentrate on copying those contour lines exactly, we'd probably be still working on that. And then, of course, we may not have much accuracy in our initial sketch if we started with the contour lines. We all create drawings differently, of course, but sometimes it's helpful to start with those basic shapes. Okay, just putting a little bit of value, a little bit of darker value here in this opening. And we're not going to spend too much time blending things or anything like that. We're just going to concentrate on the areas where we see the darkest value here, and then we'll start establishing some of those highlights, and then we'll basically work back and forth between adding darker values and enhancing the highlights to create a broader and fuller range of value in this drawing. Of course, if you're wanting to get better at drawing, then it's all about practice. The more you do anything, the better you're going to get at it. And if you can just establish a period of time each day to set aside for some practice, you're going to see noticeable improvement. And it doesn't take very long. As little as 30 minutes a day or even 10 minutes a day, if that's all the time you have in the day. Anything will improve your skill, and that's true for improving your abilities with a specific medium too. So if you wanted to get better at working with pastels, if you just spent about 10 minutes a day, if that's all the time you have on working with pastels and experimenting with them, then you're going to see improvement, which is great to know, because a lot of people just mistakenly assume that drawing and painting and any form of art making is something that people are just naturally born with. And sure, we all have some things that we're naturally better at, but when it comes to drawing and painting, those are skills that we can actually develop and improve, and we can learn. And it's not something that you have to necessarily be born with, that skill, in order to excel at it. And you ask any artist out there if that's true or not, and they will all tell you that that's true. I've never run into someone who is a working and practicing artist who believes that the reason why they can draw well or paint well is because they were born with the skill to do it. It's because they all recognize that it is a skill that anyone can learn and develop, and you develop yourself through practice. So a little bit of value right here. Now, as we're making these values darker, we have to consider that we are working on gray paper, and because we're working on gray paper, we're basically pushing darker values at this point. So there's a lot of lighter values on here, and we'll go in and add those in just a moment, just establishing some of the areas where we see some of the darkest tones and values. And I mentioned that we were going to start in the eye, and then I'd move down to the beak. We're going to work our way back to the eye here now. There's a little bit of a darker stripe that happens right here, right as we go up to the edge, where the values start to get really dark, because that little bit of a crease that goes right over the eye, and that's very distinctive for an eagle, so we need to make sure that we include that. There's a couple little darker values right up here. Go ahead and fill those in real quickly. The more that you practice too, the more that you'll increase your drawing speed. And I feel like it's important to improve your drawing speed. Not everyone feels that way, but I think that the faster you can get information down on the surface, the more time you can spend to kind of refining your drawing fixing any mistakes, changing things if you need to. Let's go ahead and darken up that pupil. And I can already tell you, I'm going to have to go in and make some of these values a little bit darker with the 4B pencil. But value is the darkness or lightness of a color, if you're not sure, since I use that word a lot. And value is relative. So we understand value based on the values that are around that particular value. So if we make a value darker in an image, sometimes it can make the values around it appear lighter, even though we haven't made the values around it lighter. And you'll see that when we start adding some of the white charcoal to the surface, some of these values that we're establishing here with the 2B pencil are going to appear a little bit darker. So we don't want we want to kind of be a little bit cautious about pushing the value range too early. We don't want to get too dark too quickly. Now, of course, if you want to spend more time on this drawing instead of doing a quick sketch like we're doing here, you can definitely start with like a lighter graphite pencil if you want, and then just progressively work your way up the value scale, adding slightly darker values with slightly softer pencils. Now I'm working from a color image here. If it helps you, you can take the color out of the image so that you're just left with dark and light values. Sometimes that helps people see the different darker and lighter values. And of course, that is one of the most important elements one of the most important elements you should strive to identify on your subject. And that's one of the elements of art, of course, value is. In fact, a lot of times if you get the values right, you get the shapes of the values correct, then the result is an image that looks like your subject. You get the textures as a result of the relationships of the values. You can see we're adding darker values. And as we do that, as we're adding these darker values, the texture of the feathers of the bird starts to come through just a little bit. Now, I have no idea if we're going to get this drawing done in 30 minutes or not. I've just set that timer. And if we go over a little bit, it's no big deal. I'm going to try to keep it as close to 30 minutes as possible. We may allow the gray of the paper to do some of the work for us as far as the midtones go, or the middle values. You want to try to strive to create a full range of value in any drawing that you create. Value not only tells us about the texture, but it also tells us about the form of the subject, the direction of the light source, all of those important elements that we need to consider in a drawing. And that's one of the reasons why I think that value is so important. And you'll talk to just about any accomplished artist out there, and they'll also agree that value is probably the most important element of art. Of course, the other elements are important too. Line, shape, texture, space, color, all of those are important, but value is one of the most influential elements on whether or not your drawing is going to be successful or not. Okay, a few specks of darker value around the outside of the eye here. One of the drawbacks to using graphite, of course, is the fact that sometimes you get a little bit of graphite shine on the surface, and you might be noticing that a little bit in the video. Of course, I'm recording this in real time. Just a few sketchy marks back here to give a little bit of differentiation between each one of these feathers. And it looks like on my timer over here, I've got 13 minutes left. So since we're over halfway It's about time to switch over to the white charcoal and start making some of these values a little bit darker, or increasing the value range, I should say. And so we have a little bit of time to go back and make some of the values darker. So I'm gonna get the shape of this shadow underneath the head here. And that was the line I created right there. And now I'm gonna go under here and start making these values a little bit darker. There is a little bit of a highlight on the front edge. So we'll preserve a little area for that. All right, now let's switch over to the white charcoal and start bringing out some of the highlights here. Clearly there's a strong highlight in the eye, so we'll go ahead and designate that. And of course there are lighter values around the pupil here in the iris as well. So real quick and sketchy and loose, we're gonna keep these applications still. And you can see how those darker values that we applied with the graphite are starting to appear a little bit darker now that we're just adding a little bit of white charcoal here. As I'm adding these marks for the feathers, I'm trying to make these marks in the direction that I feel like the feathers are growing, because the directional strokes can also help to create the illusion of texture there too. So it's not just the value relationships, but also the directional stroking that we use. And that's true whether you're creating a drawing with any drawing medium that you may choose, but also if you're creating a painting, of course. And if we're creating a painting, we're dealing mostly with brush strokes. So it's not just the relationships of the darks and lights, it's also the directional strokes that play a role. And you can see up here on the top of the head, I've altered the edge that we created there. Just brought it down a little bit, and you're always free to make changes to your drawing during the process. Sometimes you don't see certain things when you're laying your initial drawing out, and you see it when you're going back in and defining some of the details. And of course, it's always okay to make those changes when you need to. In fact, you should probably be constantly analyzing your drawing as you create it and look for those little inconsistencies, little areas that can be changed here and there. But don't obsess too much over them, because if you do, then it'll slow you down. And the next thing you know, you're not completing anything. You're just spending all your time fixing things. And that's definitely not something that you want either. Okay, so here on the beak, I'm going to change the directional strokes here, make them a little bit softer. A little less hard-edged like we did here with the feathers, where our strokes were a little bit more defined. So you can imagine if we were working on white paper here, we would need to be leaving these open areas, these areas of lighter value open, instead of going back in with the white charcoal and adding them. So definitely a clear advantage to working on toned paper. If you've never worked like this before with white charcoal or a white colored pencil or a white pastel pencil or whatever you have at your disposal, it really does help you to create a full range of tone and value in your drawings, and that makes a huge difference into the success of your drawing. Strong highlight right here on the bottom edge of the bill for whatever reason, and then there's kind of a stronger line that comes up here too. So quickly add that in, and we'll go ahead and preserve that little bit of highlight that's happening here. And we've got some strong light hitting right down here as well. So again, not exactly the same as the reference, and that's okay. I think a lot of people get obsessed with making their drawings look just like a reference, just like a photo, or just like a photo reference, or whatever subject they're looking at or observing, and it's really not necessary. And most of the drawings that we create, our viewers are never going to see the photo reference, and that's really not always a measure of the skill of the artist. You know, as artists, we're creating pieces of art, and a piece of art is not, can be a exact copy of a reference, or that can be the art itself, is the skill level of how the artist has used the medium. But a lot of times we want to communicate the subject to our viewers, and a lot of times we want to do that in a way that is unique and expressive, and expression is usually not the result. It does not usually result from copying a photo exactly. We'll go ahead and fill in some of these light areas back here. This pencil's getting dull, but I have another one at the ready here. Again, trying to make directional strokes that mimic the way that the feathers are growing here. And because we've only got about 5 minutes left, we'll go back in here and start making some of these values a little bit darker to extend our value range. So I'm going to switch over to the 4B pencil now. And that's pretty much as dark as I like to go with my drawings. I don't usually like to go to a 6B pencil or anything like that, and that's just because I'm typically a little bit heavier handed with my mark making anyway. It's going to be different for everybody out there. Some of you are going to want to go a little bit darker with maybe a 6B pencil, and some of you a 4B pencil is going to be too dark. I'm going to make some of these values around the eye just a little bit darker, and there's some of that graphite shine that's popping up there a little bit. I'm going to bring a little bit of this, a little bit of that white charcoal into the other side of the eye just a little bit. You can see on the video there's a little bit of that graphite is shiny, which can make some of your tones and values look a little bit lighter than they are actually. One way you can avoid graphite shine is by starting with a lighter pencil, a pencil that is a harder pencil like a 2H or an H pencil, and just gradually work some of that material into the surface of the paper, and then gradually get darker. And a lot of times that graphite shine is the result of starting with a softer pencil and putting heavy pressure on it, which is kind of what we did here. So of course, if you wanted to create a more finished drawing, one that is a little bit more refined, you could start the process the same way that we did here with the define shapes, and then go in and define the contour lines, just as we did here. But of course, you would be a little bit slower and a little bit more deliberate with your graphite applications, just taking each section of the drawing at a time and developing each section and then moving on to the next, or developing the whole drawing entirely at one time, just progressively getting darker with your values. You just need to work a little bit slower and a little bit more deliberately. Make a few of these areas underneath the head a little bit darker. So you can see the graphite goes right over the top of the white charcoal. It's just not the other way around. You can also use a blending stump if you prefer to go in and smooth out transitions between the darks and the lights. There's just really a lot that you can do with this combination of media. Looks like we just got 13 seconds left. I'll add just a few darker strokes back here on the back side of the head. And that is the timer. And that was a lot louder than I expected. So our 30 minutes is up. We go in here, and if we wanted to, with a kneaded eraser, and just clean up some of these edges and some of these stray marks that we used to kind of frame out the drawing at the beginning. Now you can see up here at the top of the drawing we've got a hard edge, and of course that was created by the graphite pencil, but really when you're creating a drawing like this, you want that edge to be defined by a change in value. So you probably wouldn't want to see that dark edge up there. You'd want to see the lighter marks here made with the white charcoal. So just something to think about. But our drawing is complete in 30 minutes, and let's see if we tilt it a little bit and get rid of some of that graphite shine that's showing through the video. You get a better idea of how our 30-minute quick sketch turned out. So hopefully you picked up a couple of things. So there you have it, guys, a quick sketch of an eagle on gray drawing paper with white charcoal and graphite. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you drew along with me, and I hope you were pleased with your results. Remember, you're welcome to spend more than 30 minutes. This is just a sketching exercise, of course, and that's how you're going to improve your drawing and sketching skills, by practicing. The more that you practice, the better you're going to get at drawing and painting, and observational drawing and painting in general. So thanks so much for watching. If you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. You can also check out 3 of our course videos and ebooks for free, or you can just watch another video. So as always, I wish you all the very best in your artistic success.